So we all know that Harrison Ford, one of the most popular actors in movie history, plays both Han Solo and Indiana Jones. You may also know that George Lucas was heavily involved with both franchises. But there's actually a lot more connections between these two franchises, both in-universe and in real life behind the scenes. Today, I'm going to be discussing the different Easter eggs in the Indiana Jones movies referencing the Star Wars universe, and the fan theories about how these two franchises are actually the same universe. But first, let's talk briefly about how this all came to be in the first place. Back in the 70s, George Lucas wanted to make a big action-adventure movie. He had two different ideas, one for a sci-fi movie, which would become Star Wars, and an idea about an archaeologist who goes around finding all these lost artifacts around the world.
And both of them would be kind of a serial, non-stop action kind of adventure. I decided to really go with the space idea, and I put the archaeologist on the shelf to gather dust.
A few years later, in 1977, Star Wars premiered. However, George Lucas believed the movie would flop, so he decided to skip going to the premiere altogether and instead went on a vacation to Hawaii with Steven Spielberg. During their vacation, they discussed what was next for Spielberg. George pitched the idea he had earlier about the action-adventure movie about an archaeologist getting in way over his head, and Spielberg loved the idea. They both ended up collaborating with screenwriter Lawrence Kasdan and got the whole script written. Spielberg in the director's chair and Lucas producing. We all know how it went. Indiana Jones was a mega hit and still one of the best and most iconic movie franchises of all time. Now, let's discuss the Star Wars Easter eggs featured in the Indiana Jones films. Right off the bat, during that iconic opening in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the pontoon boat that Indy climbs in after running from the Javitos has an interesting call sign, OBCPO. This is definitely one of the more subtle Easter eggs of them all, because it doesn't outright mention a Star Wars character's name. It's just a mesh of Obi-Wan Kenobi and C-3PO. Nevertheless, I think it counts, so I figured I'd mention it. Later on in Raiders, we get an outright Star Wars Easter egg. No denying this one. This one, in my opinion, is one of the easiest to miss. In the Well of Souls, where Indy finds the Ark of the Covenant, there are all these Egyptian hieroglyphics all over the walls. One hieroglyphic set in particular is important here. As you can see, C-3PO and R2-D2 are clearly inscribed on the wall. I love these kinds of Easter eggs. Blink and you'll miss it kind of things in the background. It adds so much to the set in my opinion, it makes the movie even more fun to rewatch. Also, in the beginning and end of Raiders, one of the government agents that meets with Indy is played by William Hootkins, who also plays the role of Porkins, one of the rebel pilots who dies during the Death Star trench run in A New Hope. Now, let's take a look at the second Indiana Jones film, Temple of Doom. This Easter egg is arguably the biggest in-your-face reference. In the film's big opening in Shanghai, where Indy's hostilely negotiating with Chinese gangsters over the remains of some ancient emperor, the club they're negotiating in is straight up named Club Obi-Wan. You can see the light-up sign when Indy jumps out of the building. Shockingly, that's the only reference in Temple of Doom that I know of. Maybe Spielberg and Lucas decided that this one was way too in your face, and decided against including more. The third movie, Last Crusade, features a couple of Star Wars actors. The main villain, Walter Donovan, is played by Julian Glover, who also played General Veers in The Empire Strikes Back. Also, Michael Sheard, who played Hitler, also plays Admiral Ozzel in The Empire Strikes Back. Aside from the cast members, Last Crusade does actually feature one very subtle Star Wars Easter egg. During the opening of the film where Indy's confronting his unnamed nemesis, you can spot these barrels off to the side. If you look closely, you'll notice they say Carbonito, which according to CBR means carbonite in Portuguese. Carbonite, of course, is the thing that Han Solo was frozen in during The Empire Strikes Back. Now, we have to venture into what is widely considered the worst Indiana Jones film, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. During the climax of the film, where the Crystal Skull is united with the rest of its alien skeleton, Indy mutters,
"I've got a bad feeling about this."
This line, of course, is iconic to Star Wars, with several characters saying it throughout the saga, including, of course, Han Solo.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Next up is Indy's latest film, Dial of Destiny. As I'm recording this video, the movie isn't actually out on digital or Blu-ray yet, so there may be some more Easter eggs that'll get discovered once it gets its home release, but that being said, this is what I could find after looking all over the internet. Mads Mikkelsen plays the main villain in Dial of Destiny, and also plays Galen Erso in Rogue One. Phoebe Waller-Bridge plays Indy's goddaughter, and also plays L-337 in Solo: A Star Wars Story. Really, other than the cast, there aren't any other Star Wars Easter eggs in Dial of Destiny, unless you count the Wilhelm scream, I suppose. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if more get discovered once Dial of Destiny releases on home video. Now, let's take a look at the Indiana Jones references in Star Wars media. In The Force Awakens Incredible Cross-Sections book, on board Han Solo's big cargo ship, there's a shipping container with the label 9906753, the same number as the box that the Ark of the Covenant was stored in at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. According to LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, you can actually break open the box and see the Ark of the Covenant right there. Obviously, this game isn't canon to Star Wars, and I consider it just a parody, but I think it's still a fun Easter egg regardless. Next up, in Solo: A Star Wars Story, the Golden Idol from Raiders can be found on board Dryden Voss's yacht ship. In the Andor series, the antique shop used in a few of the episodes has a back room full of all sorts of stuff. But if you look closely, you'll notice Indy's whip and the Golden Idol are both encased in carbonite on a shelf. You can also see the Sankara stones from Temple of Doom. I think it is worth mentioning that both the old LEGO Star Wars game and the old LEGO Indiana Jones game both reference each other. Again, I don't consider LEGO games canon, but I still think it's interesting regardless. So those are all the references these two franchises make to one another that I know of. So now that we've established the connection between these two, let's talk about the fan theories about how these two franchises are actually one and the same. So the big popular theory I've seen floating around a lot lately with the release of Dial of Destiny goes as follows. The entire Indiana Jones story is just a dream Han Solo has while he's frozen in carbonite. Yup, that's it. Nothing too complex. But if you think about it, it does kinda make sense. You know, there's no way that, for example, the Egyptians would have carved C-3PO and R2-D2 into the wall. It's unlike any known hieroglyphic. So, saying that the carving is there because the entire movie is a dream in Han Solo's head does make sense to me. Hell, in the opening to Raiders where Indy's trying to steal the Golden Idol, Han Solo literally would have seen the Golden Idol during the events of Solo: A Star Wars Story, which obviously takes place way before he's actually frozen. You could also argue that the characters of Han Solo and Indiana Jones are similar in the sense that they're both not like an anti-hero per se, but also not a clean-cut hero either. They're both sort of rebellious, smug, and generally put themselves first before anyone else. And it would make sense that the figment of Han Solo's imagination would have a pretty similar personality. But what do you guys think about all this? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching.